Well, with very many people having divided opinions on who was their man of the match, as Arsenal played a team known as Brentford yesterday night, here I come to obviously give you my opinions on who I think was the man of the match and rate every player that participated into that particular kind of game that ended 2-0 in favor of Arsenal and saw Arsenal go 5 points clear ahead of a team known as Man City. Smash like button, comment and share. If at all you're watching us for the very first time, endeavor to subscribe to this channel so as don't miss out on stories that we do upload in here on a daily. Rokani David is my name. Continue to subscribe because we want to hit 30,000 subscribers onto this beautiful channel in there. So let's roll, and see how these players went ahead to obviously play. David Raya, having gone ahead to go 3 games without keeping a clean sheet. Yesterday he kept a clean sheet. But every time you talk about a clean sheet of David Raya, every time you have to talk about a clean sheet that Arsenal kept yesterday, David Raya has a lot of words written to it because he made sure that a side known as Brentford don't get any shot on target. And the only one that would have obviously gone target, he saved it and fisted it to the frame of the goal or the crossbar and it ricocheted into play. That is it. So, for me, David Raya put up a very huge performance and he takes in an 8.5 out of 10 for me. 8.5 because he really kept Arsenal into the game. Because if that goal would have gone ahead to go in by that particular time, I wouldn't think that Arsenal would have gone ahead to play in the same way. And the belief of Brentford would have gone ahead to increase or surge at a certain level in there. We go to the right back, known as Benjamin White. And they are telling us that Benjamin White had 1 assist, 4 tackles won, 3 clearances, 1 blocked shot, 3 recoveries, 7 out of 9 ground duels won, 3 out of 7 aerial duels won, 1 time dribbled past, a big chance created. That is Benjamin White for you. Now, for Benjamin White, I think he might ahead obviously make his first Premier League start this season for the club of Arsenal. He really looked good. He really looked brave. And even when there was a change in the central defense because Mosquera went ahead to get an injury, Benjamin White maintained his composure and he was like, I'm going to be the right back of the day. And with that assist, he helped Arsenal get into the lead through Mikel Merino doing justice to that off the byline cross that came into the mixer, and Mikel Merino went ahead to head it home to make it 1-0 for the club of Arsenal. Not so. So for me, Benjamin White, he gets a solid 9 out of 10, right? He looked good defensively and he looked good offensively. That is Benjamin White for you. And you remember the time when he went ahead to obviously block the shot from a Brentford player in the 6 yards area of Arsenal by throwing himself in, and it really hit off his hip and it went into the corner. You remember that? So it shows you how important he was into that particular fixture. We go to Riccardo Calafiori. This guy is a special kind of player and I just love what he does. And he's a lad that has proven many wrong that he was the right guy to bring in last summer. But one. Riccardo Calafiori starts 3 tackles won, 1 interception, 3 clearances, 4 recoveries, 0 times dribbled past, 2 out of 2 aerial duels won. Now, Riccardo Calafiori is the best left back in the league. That is it. I think the only one who would have gone ahead to surpass him was going to be, what's the name? Altorinori. I think no left back does offensive plays like Altorinori, but went ahead to obviously get an injury. That's why he's not into this equation. You understand? That's why he's not into this equation, Altorinori. But I understand that Altorinori is really one of those best players that you'll ever see come up and really do the needful. But for me, Riccardo Calafiori, 8 out of 10. It goes to him. 8 out of 10 goes to a man known as Riccardo Calafiori. Into the central defense, left-sided centre-back, Hincapi. Guys, Arsenal went ahead to really buy another monster. This Ecuadorian monster is really out of this world. The way he plays the game, you know, anything you put him into, he has a solution. His toolbox has every solution to what kind of game you bring to him. If you bring a physical game, he will engage you and he will win you that physical game. If you bring a technical game or a game of brains, he'll obviously come in through and overpower you in there for you with his technical abilities and his good game reading. You know, he started his second game in the Premier League with Mosquera. Their centre-back partnership at Stamford Bridge conceded 1 goal. Then, when they came at Emirates, it never really went ahead to concede any goal. They kept their first clean sheet, though a player in the names of Paul Hincapi, Mosquera went ahead to go off injured during, I think it was half-time, and he went off after really endangering either his knee or his ankle, and that video is going to be dropping onto this channel very soon about the Mosquera injury in there. So, the player rating for Hincapi, 8 out of 10. He takes it. Mosquera looked good, and not until he went ahead, obviously, to injure himself, and we'll be talking more about his injury, you know, in the coming video. After this video, I'm dropping a Mosquera video about what Arteta had to say about the injury of Mosquera in there. So, from there, we give Mosquera a 7.5 out of 10. That is it. We go to Martin Zubimendi. This lad is one of the best CDMs in the league, if not the best. He is good at dictating the game and really giving Arsenal some huge control. If you watch that game of Arsenal versus Brentford, there came a time when Brentford was all over the place. But him and Odegaard went ahead to say, we are not going to go pound per pound. No way. That's not going to be our way. All we are going to do is we are going to go play the game of football. By the way, I had taken some time without seeing Arsenal putting out a couple of passes like they put out yesterday. And you saw to it that a second goal was coming. In the last 20 minutes of the game, what Arsenal did was to get hold of that ball, and guess who was the mastermind of really retaining that ball? It was Zubimendi, Martin. And you saw to it that they were knocking around those passes and they were using him as a reference, him and Odegaard. And you saw to it that Arsenal had started to open up a side of Brentford very, very, very well. And Zubimendi, for me, 8 out of 10. He really looked good into that game. Declan Rice, you know? Declan Rice, man from West Ham, £105 million purchase to the club of Arsenal. The lad is special, though he also went ahead obviously get an injury, and we need to obviously do a video on Declan Rice injury. I'm going to let you know what the manager is going ahead to say about him in there. So Zubimendi, 8 out of 10. Declan Rice, he also takes an 8 out of 10. You know, defensively, he did interceptions, he had shots at goal. You remember that big miss from Bukayo Saka, you know, towards the last 10 minutes of the game. I tell you what, Declan Rice really looked real into that midfield, and he looked like a real monster into that box-to-box role of Arsenal. So he gets an 8.5 out of, I give him an 8.5 out of 10. Then we go to Noni Madueke. Coming from injury, playing his third game, and starting his first game ever since return from injury, and he registered himself an assist. Remember, in the game of Bayern Munich, he came off the bench and really scored. So that is how good he's looking as Noni Madueke. And for me, an 8.5 goes into his favor as a player in there. We go to Martinelli. Guys, I'm sorry to say, but I'm not impressed with what Martinelli is putting out on the field of play. That is it. I'm not impressed at all. I'm not impressed at all. Guys, not at all impressed with what Gabriel Martinelli is really putting out on the field of play, especially when he starts. I've already told you he is a very good player off the bench. And I don't know why Arteta doesn't understand this, because it will cost him at a certain point X. The guy is better off the bench. And if he does it against Aston Villa and starts him off the bench, you'll see the difference he puts out. That's why you saw to it that in the game of Bayern Munich, he looked good. You understand? In the game of Chelsea, he looked bad. Today or yesterday, he looked bad. Why? Because he's being played off in the starting 11. Get him. Like in the game of yesterday, as this team was really opening up, he would have gone ahead to really maraud into those spaces that you saw Ebelechi was trying to obviously maraud in. So for me, it's better to start Eze because Trossard is injured, and then you let it flow like that and get in your Martinelli to capitalize onto those spaces that have been really left in there. So I believe if he's to start and look good, you know who should be playing as the center forward. It should be Gabriel Jesus. And in the game they're going to be playing in the Champions League next week, I want him to experiment it and see how good this guy is going to be looking. Because for Jesus, he has a very good holder play, and that holder play will help him really do the needful, and it will help him really get spaces and get released by the center forward to obviously thrive into his speed merchant role. That is Martinelli. He takes a 7.5 out of 10 for me. Mikel Merino, who led the line before substitutions were really made. Let's see what game he really had by numbers. And this is how he was documented into that particular game. 1 goal, 1 assist, 3 shots, 1 big chance missed, 51 touches, 11 lost possessions, 3 recoveries, and 1 clearance. That is Mikel Merino for you. And for me, he takes a 9.5 out of 10. He was all over the place, I really saw him really lose possession, but the way he ran and put out a very huge shift in there for you was really extraordinary in there for you. So for me, he gets a 9.5 out of 10, and his consistency. Scoring a goal today, remember he scored a goal when Arsenal is playing against Chelsea. When they're playing against Tottenham Hotspur, I think he was pivotal into that win, if at all you remember. So the guy is all over the place, and he's really looking like that player that you need in your team to really win trophies. And he reminds me of those days of Darren Fletcher at Manchester United. Fletcher and O'Shea used to do what exactly Mikel Merino is doing at the club of Arsenal. And by the way, if your club is to win a trophy, they need a player like this guy, Mikel Merino, who can come in through and play as a center forward. He can play in the midfield. Like, he comes in through when you best need him. He's the man responsible for really retrieving a point or saving a point for Arsenal at the Stamford Bridge. Now, players off the bench that came in through. I had not talked about Martin Odegaard. An 8 out of 10 for Martin Odegaard. Looking good and looking exquisite in every moment he really had into that midfield. And when you see Zubimendi play with Odegaard, you see to it that the team is really strong. And that's why sometimes the manager is like saying, let me drop in Eze and Odegaard at the same time. Because Eze can do that box-to-box role, and Odegaard can do that number 10 role very well. But he was all over the place, and he helps Arsenal build its attacks, or they tailor most of the attacks around him, as he is that central point that thinks for this club of Arsenal. From the bench, Bukayo Saka came in through and really scored an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, 9 out of 10 for Bukayo Saka. And he needed this goal badly because he was not into the mood in the recent past. Talk of Julian Timber, who came in for Mosquera, an 8.5 out of 10. He looked very comfortable, and he reminded me of the Julian Timber of Ajax, because in that central defense, the lad was like a Berlin Wall, and he partnered well with Hincapi. Yet they played together in that central defense for the very first time in there for you. From there, we obviously get to a side called... let's get to a side called... Who else came in? Who else came in for Arsenal? Let me check. Which other players came on for Arsenal? Because I know Saka came on. Saka came on, 1. Julian Timber came on, 2. Victor Gyökeres came on, 7.5 out of 10. That's what I'm really getting him as a player. Ebelechi Eze came on, 7.5 out of 10. So those are the 4 substitutes that the manager went ahead to make onto the field of play. And he took off Mosquera, Declan Rice, Martinelli, and Noni Madueke. You understand? So that is Arsenal for you. The manager, 8.5 out of 10. And here we come to say who my man of the match was. For me, I take Mikel Merino. You know, Merino's consistency is really out of this world. And he really won this game for Arsenal. That is it. By scoring the most important bit of goal. They gave Ben White the man of the match. I have no problem with it. But for me, it's Mikel Merino who was my man of the match. But go into the comment section and let me know who was your man of the match.